The video for the 28th of April is with Christopher Timms. This is Christopher. You've met him before. And the title that we came up with is Context and Developing Discernment. So I'm going to let Christopher take it away, and we'll see how the conversation develops here. Christopher, thank you for joining us.
Ron, thanks for having me. It's great to hang out again. And this is the most we've seen each other in quite some time. It's pretty funny. You know, we live in the same town basically, but we see each other more on Zoom than we do in person. So,
well, we can change that, of course.
We can. I know.
I'm still trying to find a location where I can have meetings that I host.
Yeah.
I mean, like I used to do for a long time.
And it was a great part of the community.
You were a great part of the community. You've always offered food for thought and other opinions and angles of looking at things, perspectives.
Yeah, I'm the big cosmic instigator, you know, and it's important.
Yes, and I'm the paradox man, and so I always challenge the preconceived notions that we have in our spiritual community.
And that's what's really important. And what Ron's saying, everyone, is great in that to point out the paradox, for me to break consensus, to get people to actually think, you know, to think for themselves. That's what Ron wants you to do. That's what I want you to do. And I wanted to just take a little bit of time today and talk about the symbolism of what's happening in the culture today, because it's obvious, it's apparent, it's greatly revealing, and it's a wonderful sign of really where we're going in the world, you know, in the awakening of our species. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about what they call in the media, they call it fake news. You know, and this side is saying that this side is fake news, and this side is saying that this side is fake news, and it's the pot calling the kettle black kind of a thing. Everybody's yelling at each other, and if you remember, those of you who've studied Eastern religions, the picture out of the Bhagavad Gita of the 5 blind men describing an elephant, and that's really the story of fake news. And except that the blind men realize they're blind, but they still think that they're seeing the entirety of an elephant. You know, one describes an elephant as just being big like a wall. Another one sees the elephant as being like a tree, you know, and all these descriptions that they think are the right description, and they're sincere about it, you know, but they're
not putting the pieces together.
They're not putting the pieces together. They're blind. That's the beautiful metaphor of the symbolism. And that's about a 5,000-year-old story, you know. And I've heard Christian pastors tell the same story without the Hindu link, you know. And it's just very, very funny because it just permeates all that type of philosophical idea. So what I'm speaking about is gaining context and developing discernment, just as Ron said. And that's what life, the metaphor, the symbolism of what's happening in our culture is screaming at you about now. Just screaming at you about. Because there's so many trajectories of information coming at you. So many different directions and perspectives. Let's take something real simple, like nutrition. You know, are you going to go macrobiotic? Or are you going to go Ayurvedic? Or are you going to go vegan? Or are you going to go lacto-ovo? Or are you going to go carnivore? Are you going to go omnivore? Are you going to do instinctotherapy? Or are you going to do raw? There's a big difference between raw and live. You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to do supplementation? Are you going to not going to do supplementation? How much exercise are you going to add into your diet? Because that's part of your diet as well. It's where you ingest. You know, what kind of exercise? You're going to lift weights, you're going to run, you're going to walk, you're going to jump rope, you're going to ride a bike, you're going to do aerobics or yoga or Tai Chi. Is that enough? What are you going to do? Who's telling you the right information? Who's telling you the right information?
I think we've got to follow our instinct and our hearts to the best of our ability, knowing that chances are we're going to change our minds as we develop more information about what we're doing, and we're willing to bend. If we're not willing to bend,
then you're out of the game.
Absolutely,
you're out of the game. What Ron's talking about is being willing and able to adapt and improvise depending upon the information, the dynamics that are available to you in that moment. Because as you experience one thing, you accumulate perspective, context. Now that I've studied Tai Chi a little bit, I have a picture of what Tai Chi is all about, and now that I've done weightlifting, now that I've eaten this way, I can feel what this is like. And the same with studying your news as to what's happening in the world. Whether I'm studying what's happening in the world from a historical point of view, from a contemporary point of view, I don't buy conservative or liberal viewpoints. I just kind of look at information systems, and disregard what the person may call themselves. I just listen and pay attention. For instance, in the realm of society today, I'll listen to local news in the morning on the television because I have a HD antenna, right? And it's free, and you get about a dozen channels. Beautiful. So I'm listening to Cocoa Beach and Orlando, and even NASA has a channel, right? And all of that. And I just listen to kind of what they're telling you about the local and regional news. And when you flip channels from one to another, you can hear the same story from a totally different perspective. And it's very funny, just on a little local event, like something happened at like if there was a robbery at a convenience store. I'll hear the story on one channel, and then I'll flip to another channel, and 10 minutes later, after you hear the local weather, you have the same story come up, but they're telling it from a different perspective.
Well, ironically, I watched a video once where they were showing news broadcasts from different parts of the country, all on the same day, and every one of them was using basically the same storyline, the same sequence of wording.
Yeah.
And then there were different newscasters in different cities all over the United States.
Playing the same theme.
Right, because the news was fed to them from a central source.
And that's why I do a combination, everybody. This is context. I watch a little bit of local stuff. There's a local talk radio guy just from the Melbourne, Palm Bay area in the mornings. I listen to his show. Just as I'm doing yard work and different things, just to see what he's talking about. But then I go online and I read the Drudge Report. I listen to Alex Jones. I see what they're saying, and then I'll put on CNN, just for entertainment purposes. And then I'll listen to Fox for more entertainment purposes, and I just see what they're spinning, what they're throwing at you, because those bigger corporations, like Ron said, they're being fed a particular story and a slant on the story. And in order, when you find out who owns these companies, like Rupert Murdoch and all these different people who own
well, there's only about 5 or 6 people that own all of the major media in the United States. Probably Western civilization.
That's right. So they get to say, no, you can't report that way. Here, because I write your check, you do it this way. And most people are very easily bought, unfortunately. So gaining context. I read the New York Times. I do different things just to get different viewpoints of what's going on. And then I look at cycles of history to see how countries rise and fall, how societies build and then deteriorate, and look at patterns, and gaining context. I look at people in the realm of nutrition to see, how many 90-year-old vegetarians do I know? that are on the world stage, that are still making public appearances, and what are they like? And I look at, well, there's Jack LaLanne. He was 96 when he passed away. Paul Bragg was 96 when he passed away. They were complete vegetarians and juicing guys, exercise people, yoga people, all of that. Okay, that's pretty good. The man that I study Kung Fu with, Grandmaster Chung, he's 75, and he's just phenomenal. He eats some meat, but everything is organic, and his wife hand makes, all their food, and it's just glorious. He's Korean, this classic, beautiful diet, lots of fermented foods. So, okay, fermented foods are good, and live food's good, fermented food's good, and so gaining context. I look at things and I look at the examples. And this is discernment. Okay, someone eats a certain way. How do they look to me? Not just physical appearance, that's one thing, sure. But is their mind alert? What is their countenance like? How do they feel to me? And that's not just how they eat, it's what they're consuming emotionally, mentally, all of it, because all that's part of diet. So I look at all of that, and you gain context, and when I used to hang out with a lot of macrobiotic people, I say, a lot of these people look a lot alike and they kind of behave a lot alike. When I hung out with a lot of live food people, like at Hippocrates or Ann Wigmore, when I was teaching there and working there, you get to hang out with a lot of live food people, and I see what they're like, and when I was totally live food, Ron, for those years, totally live and raw, I would be at Hippocrates, and people would come up and they would like squeeze my arms and shoulders and stuff and go, "You're not live food. Come on, you're not live food." And I would say, "Absolutely, I've been live food for years." And I would say, "How is that possible?" Because I'm a big guy. I'm pretty beefy because I work out all the time, right? And I say, "Look, the body responds to the demands you put upon it." And they go, "What? Huh?" And I said, "Look, you guys look like a good wind would just knock you over. So just
Well, everybody wants us to get into their box, and that's
right.
Instead of letting people letting life flow and letting people march to the beat of their own drummer, as the expression goes. People want to categorize each other by judgment and stuff like that, and it takes it out of context.
And the inflexibility is part of what I was going for, is that whether it was the macrobiotic people or the strict live food people, so many of them were very resistant to doing anything that would really take their vitality up to another level, which is challenging the physical body. I mean, this is the world according to Chris, of course, because we each speak according to our own,
of course,
reference point, right? So, and I'm just trying to help people. I was there working as a health educator, and they were very resistant to change. Very resistant to being open to testing other things. That's how you gain context, is being open to adapt, being open to testing new ideas. So I test macrobiotics. I tested live foods. I tested being, lacto-ovo. I tested being completely vegan. All these different things. I test them within myself. I look at what it does to my body. I feel what it does in my mind, and I make adjustments as I've gone through. I've been vegetarian, as you know, for over 30 some years. I've been an athlete all of my life. So I'm looking for optimum performance mentally, emotionally, physically, so that I can free myself spiritually to the best of my abilities. Because I don't ever want to be encumbered or limited by my body. That's part of why context is so important. So whether you're getting context nutritionally, health-wise, whether you're getting context politically, so you can look around and so you can try to get some kind of perspective as to what is happening in the world, because that is part of what we're here to do, is to get context, to learn how to discern and go, this is a bunch of junk. I don't buy that. This makes sense to me, so I'm going to go along that line of thought for a while. Okay. People don't realize that it takes effort. It takes study. You've spent countless hours studying and researching and developing a great deal of insight into a number of things as to the way society is structured, world governments are structured, all types of things. Is that the Prime Minister calling again?
I don't know. That's on the computer. I'm ignoring it. I don't know what it is. Keep going.
Okay. Well,
I'm sorry. I don't even know how to shut it off because I'm not on that page.
It's okay. No worries.
Well, I just muted that computer and it stopped, but it didn't stop immediately.
No.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. So discernment is your willingness to actually make a decision and have an opinion. Now, I used to jokingly, but seriously, take the idea out of New Age where everyone says, well, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good. And I used to say, okay, why don't you walk with me through the grocery store and just repeat as you're walking up and down the aisles, it's all good. And then just look around and you and I will go through the grocery store and we'll have a little discussion about all of this that's all good. You know, Paul Bragg used to walk through the grocery store with people and point out that about 93% of the material in the grocery store was unfit for human consumption. You know, and then
especially in the United States.
Especially in the United States, and then and then you can get into the whole idea of, well, you know, I can energetically change my food, and I can bless it, and I can change this and that other thing. I don't want to go there with you. I'm just talking with everybody about being able to discern. You know, because unless you are decisive within yourself and develop your own little opinions, I'm full of my Chris opinions. Just ask me. It's great.
We all are.
That's right. And
if we don't make a religion out of it, we can actually love each other.
That's right. And that's the whole thing, is to not be righteous about it. No, realize that me and my opinions are just me and my opinions. I can't take me or my opinions too seriously, because in the big cosmic picture, I don't even really exist. You know, it's just, I'm part of Maya, the illusion of all this stuff. So because I experienced that clearly, then I'm free to really be decisive, to really be sharp and clean and clear with my opinions, just to play with that whole idea, because it's exciting. Being wishy-washy is not exciting. I mean, that's like, you know, who wants to be wishy-washy?
Well, neither is dogmatic exciting from my perspective.
Right.
So there's extremes.
That's right. And that's, can we say that being dogmatic is being actively ignorant?
Well, or totally set in our ways, and especially our thought patterns.
Yes. Yeah. And
we're locked in, and that does not allow growth.
And it doesn't allow adaptation, improvisation. You're not willing to listen to any other ideas. You know, when I used to play drums at the little Christian church, you know, which I loved playing the Christian rock. You know, I loved the music, right?
Yeah.
Professional drummer. Loved all that. When I remember talking to the pastor, who was great friends with me. We trained at the gym 5 days a week, played music together. He was a very talented guy. So we became good friends, as long as I didn't cross this line, you know, his dogmatic line. But then when I mentioned one night at a study, he was doing a study on one of the books out of the Bible. So we would go, and I'm listening, and I'm saying, but you know, in these other texts, the Gnostic texts, the Nag Hammadi library, there's all these other gospels about and they give richness to the life of Jesus, other contexts. You know, and when I mentioned the life of the Gospel of Judas, you know, he goes there, well, how could Judas, you know, the word gospel means good news, everybody. And how can there be any good news from Judas? He was the betrayer. And I just thought, oh, what did I just do? You know, and so.
I've tried to talk
living
to
dogma
in churches and stuff. I continue to try to build bridges. Instead of walls, take down the walls. But it's so hard for people to understand that walls limit us.
And until people arrive at a point when they're willing to actually test what they find valuable on the scales of today with new information, with new ideas, then they're going to stay stuck. And that's dogmatic. You're right. That's what being dogmatic is. When you say, no, not going to think about that, not going to read those books, not going to think those ideas, not going to consider those possibilities. So people that do that, whether they're new agers that do that, that pretend to be open-minded and everything, or whether it's other conventional religions people or politically based people that don't want to hear any ideology outside of their little box of stuff, that's all segregative. That's all separatistic. That's all dogmatic. And you're not open to context. You're not open to discernment. And every day I rediscover what my values are. I rediscover what my priorities are in life. I don't assume. Every day, for instance, I discover whether I'm going to be vegetarian today or not. I do. Believe me, there's no rule that says I have to be vegetarian.
Right.
Right. I could, if I feel like it, I give myself permission. I could go to Sizzler with Yolanda and have a big steak and a potato if I wanted to. Right? But because there's no cosmic law, there's no judgment against any of it. The universe doesn't care. The universe is just saying, yes, here, enjoy this, enjoy that, have your choices, see what they bring you, and just enjoy all the good things in life. And to stay in the state, and this is a good way to draw this together, context brings with it the willingness to discern. And with that, if you're willing to exercise that courage, to exercise your opinions, to speak to the world about who you are, what you stand for, where your line in the sand is, then you're going to stay in a precious place in consciousness, which is the state of discovery.
Yeah.
So curiosity, context, discernment, they all bring you to this state of discovery, because when you're decisive, when you're defined, when you declare to the world what you're really all about, you're going to discover very quickly who's open-minded, who's willing, who wants to listen, who wants to really go into the deep end of the pool, and you're going to find out really quickly who wants to run away and go to the shallow end and climb out. But that's okay. That's okay, because you're not here to make everybody else happy. You're here to explore and to discover what it is you're all about in this thing that you call existence. So that's really what I wanted to share with everybody. Just some nice thoughts and fun conversation. Now,
basic principles of spirituality. Spirituality is inclusive, not exclusive. Religion becomes exclusive, but it's ego-driven, and it's an imbalance in the ego.
That's right. That's right. So. And we're at, I guess, in conclusion about that bigger picture as you shared, we're at the end of an age now, and at the end of this age, we're at the end of the age of religion, as I've said for years and years, and we're living in it. Like right in our hands right now. It's the end of the age of religion, where religions like Christianity, Islam, they'll fall apart. And it's not that they fall apart from wars. That just feeds them. Okay? They fall apart from the natural progression of systems, which is to move through emergence, discovery, definition, and then what's called entropy. And the systems of the world, just like the banking industry, the political systems, the religions of the world, are falling now into the entropy stage of their life cycle. And that's beautiful, because as they fall away like wilted petals on a flower, there's another flower that's just beginning to bud.
It gives us new beginnings, or the potential for new beginnings.
And it is a new beginning. That's called emergence.
Yeah.
It's called emergence. And it's this self-determining living intelligence with limitless creativity that is available as we do nothing but just allow what's happening to happen, allow all the systems to just pass, which they will. We don't have to fight them or argue with them or banter with them. They're falling all apart. And as they do, we will reveal to ourselves and those that come after us a world which is beyond our imagination, that we can't imagine it. I mean, that's what all the prophecies, all the ancient texts tell us. And a great picture for everybody to have is in what's called the Lost Book of Nostradamus, which is a book that was penned by his son during the last years of Nostradamus's life, because Nostradamus had rheumatoid arthritis and couldn't really do much of the quatrains and do much of his illustrations any longer. This book was dictated by Nostradamus to his son. And in this book, it shows a picture of mankind, as Nostradamus, right? It was a portrait that his son drew of him, holding this empty book, a book that has nothing written on the pages. And that's because where we're going has no definition.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a really good point. So don't let any of these people tell you that they know what the new world is going to be like. I don't care whether it's Eckhart Tolle or anybody else. They have no idea. They really have no idea. At the end of the Tibetan calendar, when it ended in 2012, December 21st, because the Tibetan calendar ended then as well, Greg Braden asked the lamas at one of the monasteries, what comes next? And the lamas just shrugged their shoulders and said, we don't know. And it's because we're discovering that, and that ties us back to that word now. So that's it. I rambled too much, but it's fun to hang with Ron, and we just get into these great discussions. So thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome, Christopher. And we'll have to get together sometime so we can meet face to face and not just online with cameras.
We will. We'll have a nice meal together. We'll get Yolanda and figure out where she wants to go, and we'll go there.
Okay.
I won't eat a steak probably, but you never know. You never know.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to stop the recording now and say namaste.
Namaste.